Baseball is, of course, America's pastime, but the U.S. isn't the only country where the game is enjoyed. Nearly 130 countries play the sport, including 20 in Africa. 4 years ago, the Dodgers set up a baseball academy in the heart of Uganda. LA Times' Kevin Baxter traveled there to get an up-close look. I love this story, Kevin. Thanks for being here to share.
Thanks for having me back.
I have to say, who knew? When did the Dodgers go to Africa and why?
Well, the Dodgers got there about 4 years ago, and they teamed with a guy named Richard Stanley, who was a former chemical engineer at Procter & Gamble. He owned a minor league baseball team. And around 2002, he was in Uganda working as a volunteer, and someone said, hey, why don't we start a baseball team? And he did. And they started working with kids, introducing them to the game. And by 2011, so 9 years after they first introduced the game, Uganda qualified for the Little League World Series. And that got a lot of people's attention that there may be some talent here.
So how does the Dodgers camp work, which again, you said they started 4 years ago? How do players get in? What's the program like? What's the end game, so to speak?
Well, the Dodgers are being very secretive about their academy. It's very hard to find. Even people that live in the local neighborhood don't know it's there. It's kind of hidden behind a lot of trees and things. And there's a guard at the gate. And the Dodgers refused to speak to us on the record about it, refused to talk about anything that went on there. But there are a lot of people that worked in that academy. And there's 4 fields in there. There's a dormitory, there's a cafeteria, there's a weight room. So players are recruited from around the country. They're found by local scouts. The Dodgers give them a tryout, and if they think that they have potential, then they're invited to stay at the academy, where they go to school and they play baseball.
And they are doing something good for these players, but it's not just out of the goodness of their heart they're doing this.
No, and in fact, it's very controversial what the Dodgers are doing. They teamed with Richard Stanley, and they actually used the facility that he built for his Little League program, and that's where the fields and things are. Richard Stanley was a guy who gave a lot of money out of his own pocket. He flew these teams to these Little League World Series. Uganda actually qualified 3 times for the Little League World Series and played there twice. And a lot of the money for those tournaments came out of Richard Stanley's pocket. He flew the team there. The Dodgers have not been quite as generous. Baseball equipment is very hard to find in Uganda. Most of it is smuggled in by missionary groups and other foreign travelers. The Dodgers have not shared much of their equipment. They've kept their work there very secretive. Some Ugandans have told me they feel like it's the old white colonialists of the past, the European colonialists who would come into Africa, mine the area for mineral resources, in this case, the mineral resources of the players, and then leave without giving anything back. And there is a lot of controversy about whether the Dodgers may in fact be doing that.
What's the impact been on the communities there?
Well, that's very interesting because the Dodgers are you can say it's good or bad or whatever, but the bottom line is the Dodgers are educating these kids, the kids lucky enough to get in the academy, and the wider community, they're giving them hope. The Dodgers are there. It's the only club-run academy in Europe or Africa, so no other major league club has an academy like this, and they're giving the kids hope. Now, it may be a 1 in a million long shot, but the Dodgers are there saying, if you come in here, you have a chance of playing in the major leagues someday. And so that hope, spreads throughout the country. Anyone who's interested in baseball knows that there's a pathway now. There wasn't before.
Yeah, and Kevin, hope is so important in that country, especially to its youth. Tell everybody about the percentage of orphans.
Yeah, 1 in 9 children in Uganda is an orphan. It's the 19th poorest country in the world. The per capita gross national income is $800.
The Los Angeles Dodgers have signed 2 Ugandan players to their academy program.
The Dodgers signed 2 players and a coach. They signed them last year. It took them to the Dominican Republic, to their academy there. Another player that was in the academy, David Matoma, was signed by the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Dodgers apparently were not interested in signing him, so the Pirates came in and signed him. And there are 2 other kids recently that have been in the academy that have come to the U.S. to go to college. So none of these people may ever make the major leagues. In fact, only 2 Africans from the entire continent, they were South African, have ever made the major leagues. But when you look at this, 5 players that have come to the Dodger Academy in the last year and couple of months have all come to the United States or the Dominican to play baseball either in college or professionally. And again, that's that hope that there's a pathway out if you can master this very difficult game.
Yeah, I mean, baseball has been going to other countries for years and years and years, right?
Right. And a Pittsburgh Pirates scout told me that Africa is very different than most of these other countries because the best athletes in Africa are just waiting for a game to play. And if you teach them baseball early enough, as Richard Stanley did, you're going to be, you have a real good chance of finding something that nobody else knows about. Privately, the Dodgers believe that this is an investment for the future. They talked about, some of the people talk privately about this, what we spoke about, the fact that there's these great athletes here. They see this as a long-term project. This is not, they've been there 4 years, but this is not something that they're going to close up and leave. In fact, if anything, they're going to broaden their scope. Now, Uganda right now, as far as outside South Africa, is probably the most powerful baseball country in the continent. They just qualified for the U18 World Cup, qualified for the U12 World Cup. Whether they're going to have the funding to get those players there, nobody knows. But Uganda's success has sort of spread to some of the neighboring countries. Kenya now has a very vibrant baseball program. And I think the Dodgers look at that as they did with their Dominican Academy, which takes in Cubans and Venezuelans and Nicaraguans. They're going to look at this setup in Uganda. They're going to bring players from Kenya and other surrounding countries. This thing is only going to grow. The Dodgers are very bullish on the potential for this academy to really produce major league players.
Kevin Baxter for the LA Times, writing about a secretive baseball camp in Uganda run by the Dodgers. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
今回見てもらった動画はロサンゼルスタイムズが公開したドジャースがウガンダで運営する秘密の野球アカデミーの内部っていう2023年の記事の動画でした。今、アフリカの佐々木朗希って呼ばれてるジョセフ・デング選手がドジャースと契約して話題になってるけど、動画の通り、実はアフリカの選手がドジャースと契約するのは初めてじゃなくて、南スーダン出身の初めての選手ってことみたい。ジョセフ選手は南スーダン出身だけど、難民としてウガンダに住んでいて、そこでウガンダのドジャースアカデミーを利用したそうですよ。ちなみに、ソフトバンクのトライアウトを受けたこともあるみたい。ウガンダ野球を支援する会さんによると、ドジャースは選手をスカウトするだけじゃなくて、現地にたくさんの道具やユニフォームを送ったり、大会を開いたりしているみたい。ドジャースのおかげで、ウガンダの野球がぐんぐん発展してるのは間違いないんだとか、動画の中では、ドジャースがあんまりお金を出さないって話もあったけど、最近は少しずつ変わってきてるのかもしれないですね。でも支援の仕方によっては、植民地っぽいイメージが連想されて嫌がる人もいる。っていうのはちょっとびっくり。日本も1チームじゃ難しくても、NPB としてあちこちにアカデミーを作ったりしたら面白そう。そして今回のジョセフ選手の契約に対して、MLB ファンの反応はというと、身長2メートルなのに体重83キロって細すぎとか、君は間違ったスポーツをやっている。レイカーズは君を必要としているみたいなコメントがあったり、ドジャースがアジアだけじゃなくてアフリカも制覇し始めたとか、20年後に南スーダンはドジャースの下部組織と言われてるなど、ドジャースに関してのもの。一方で、アフリカ出身の MLB スター選手がいれば新しいファンや才能が増えるはず。アフリカとヨーロッパこそが野球の次のフロンティアだと思うという期待の声や、大きなホームランを連発して MVP を取るような選手が出てきたらすごいっていうワクワクしたコメントもたくさん見られました。というわけで、アフリカやヨーロッパからもっと選手が増えたら、野球界全体がどんな風に盛り上がっていくのか楽しみですね。あなたはどう思いましたか？ぜひコメントで教えてください。